Okay, so have you ever thought about how just like one tiny word can change a whole sentence?
Yeah.
Like, why do we say could
Yeah.
when can is shorter?
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to unlock today, that secret code.
I like it.
Today's deep dive is all about the small but mighty words.
Modal verbs.
Modal verbs. And you'd be surprised how much
Oh, yeah.
those little words impact how our message is received.
Right.
Even if we don't realize it consciously.
It's like the difference between, like, can I please have a cookie?
Right.
Or give me that cookie.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Totally different vibe.
Totally.
Same basic message. So we're diving into excerpts from modals can, could, may, might, must to understand how these words work. Get ready for some serious aha moments.
Absolutely. We'll be focusing on can, could, may, might, and must, exploring how they can express everything from ability and permission to those subtle shades of possibility and obligation. Let's just kick things off with can. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Like, I can juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle.
Right.
Okay, maybe not, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's about what we're able to do.
Precisely. Can conveys a sense of certainty and confidence in our abilities.
Right.
I can speak Italian. They can solve complex equations.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
direct and assured.
And it's not just about, circus skills, whether real or imagined.
Right.
Can also pops up when we're asking for permission, but in a more casual way.
Exactly. Think about it. Can I borrow that book? Sounds a lot more natural than may I borrow that book?
Right.
Even though both are grammatically correct.
Okay.
Can keeps things friendly and informal.
Yeah. So can is our go-to for confidently expressing ability and casually asking permission. Seems simple enough.
Right.
But hold on tight because things are about to get way more interesting as we delve into the world of could. It's the past tense of can, sure, but it also injects this whole new layer of meaning into our sentences.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
That it does.
Yeah.
While can confidently states an ability, could introduces a degree of uncertainty.
Yeah.
For instance, I can run a mile versus I could run a mile, but I might need a nap afterward.
I feel that one.
Right.
So it's not just about whether you could or couldn't, but about like how likely you are to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift,
Yeah.
but it can have a big impact.
Okay.
Imagine you're asking someone for a favor. Can you help me with this? Sounds way more confident than could you help me with that?
Totally.
Yeah.
And the first one, you're right. The first one, you're assuming that they can, whereas the second one, you're like, oh, maybe, maybe not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like could is the polite, less demanding cousin of can.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So could for past possibility, polite requests,
Yes.
and when we're not so sure about something.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, before we move on to may and might, any thoughts on how this can versus could difference might play out in a high-stakes situation like, say, a job interview?
Oh, that's a great point. Let's say you're asked, can you manage a team effectively? Answering with a confident, yes, I can, is going to leave a much stronger impression than a hesitant, well, I could,
Yeah.
even if you mean the same thing.
Wow, you're right.
Right.
That seemingly small word choice could actually, make or break your chances.
Absolutely.
So it seems like understanding these subtle differences is not just about grammar, it's about mastering the art of communication. And that's just can and could. Get ready because we're about to unravel the mysteries of may and might after to give.
All right, we're back and ready to tackle the next two modal verbs on our list, may and might. Now, may always strikes me as a bit, how do I put it, proper, like it's something you'd hear in a Jane Austen novel.
You're not wrong. May does have that air of formality, particularly when it comes to asking permission.
Right.
May I leave the table? It sounds so much more polite than a blunt, can I go now? Right, it's like may understands the importance of good manners. So if we want to sound super polite when asking for something, may is our go-to word. But what about might? It feels like it's always whispering possibilities, never quite sure of itself.
That's a great way to describe it. Both may and might deal with possibility, but might dials down the certainty even further.
Okay.
If someone says, it may rain tomorrow, you might want to grab an umbrella just in case.
Right.
But if they say it might rain tomorrow, well, maybe you leave the umbrella at home and take your chances.
So it's all about those subtle degrees of certainty. May suggests a decent possibility, while might makes it feel less likely. And I'm guessing this difference plays a huge role in how we make decisions, especially when there's an element of risk involved.
Exactly. Imagine you're about to invest in a new business venture. Hearing this venture may be successful sounds more promising than this venture might be successful, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, yeah. Even though both statements acknowledge the possibility of success, that one tiny word makes all the difference in how we perceive the risk involved.
And just like could, might can also be used for gentle suggestions.
Oh, okay.
Saying you might want to reconsider that decision is a lot softer than you should really rethink that. It allows for the possibility that the other person might have a different perspective.
So might is all about softening the blow, leaving room for interpretation. Now, before we move on to must, I'm curious, have you ever noticed how people from different cultures use these words? Like, do the British really say may and might more often?
That's a fascinating question. While there are always individual differences, cultural norms can definitely influence how we use language, and modal verbs are no exception. It would be fascinating to explore the nuances of how may and might are used in different parts of the world.
Totally. It's like those words hold a secret key to understanding different cultures. Okay, speaking of words with impact, let's move on to the most commanding of them all. Must. I feel like must doesn't mess around. It's all about rules and obligations.
You're right. Must carries a weight that the other modals just don't have. It expresses a sense of obligation, sometimes even a moral imperative.
Right.
You must tell the truth. It's about doing what's right, what's necessary, no matter what.
So if my friend says, you must try this new pizza place, it's amazing, am I morally obligated to go?
Perhaps not morally, but in the name of friendship and delicious pizza, it might be a good idea. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of must. It doesn't always have to be serious. It can also express strong recommendations or enthusiastic endorsements, like in your pizza example.
So must has a fun side too. It's not just about rules, but about sharing things we're passionate about. This is blowing my mind. We've covered can, could, may, might, and must, each with its unique flavor and purpose. But before we get lost in the sauce of all these modal verbs, maybe it's time to bring it all together. What do you think?
Yeah, a little synthesis would be helpful. So if you remember in that summary chart that we pulled from the source material, it's basically like a cheat sheet for modal verbs. Lays it all out.
Perfect. And we'll be sure to link that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
But, I think what really helps solidify this is like putting it into practice.
Yeah.
So let's just say, for example, you're at a job interview, okay? And they ask you, can you tell us about a time you faced a challenge?
Right.
Now, you could simply answer, yeah, I can.
Right.
But notice how much stronger it sounds to say, I can definitely tell you about a time I faced a challenge, followed by a compelling example, of course.
Of course, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
So you're not just saying, yeah, I can, you're like, I can do this.
Right, exactly. It's about choosing the modal verb that best reflects your confidence and intention.
Right.
So now imagine later that day, our job seeker is texting a friend. They say, we could grab dinner tonight. Interested?
Okay, so they're using could there,
Right.
but they're leaving it open, so it's not like a for sure thing.
Exactly. That simple could keeps the tone casual and flexible.
This is really cool. This is really cool because I feel like we've unlocked like this secret code to communication.
Absolutely.
Almost. And, before, I feel like we kind of use these words, not just randomly because we know how to use them, but we weren't really thinking about it. And
Right.
now that we're actually thinking about it, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's all these different ways we can use these.
It's like we've shined a light on something that was always there.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
But we just weren't paying attention to.
Yeah.
And by bringing that awareness, we can be more deliberate, more intentional, and ultimately more effective with our language.
I love it. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I don't think I'm going to ever look at these little words the same ever again.
I feel the same way. It just goes to show that sometimes those small words, they can have the biggest impact.
So true. So true. So for anyone listening, I have a challenge for you. Pay attention to how you use these modal verbs this week. Could you be more confident with a can? Might you want to soften a request with a could? Become aware of those choices, and I guarantee you'll see a difference.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling really adventurous, here's a thought to ponder. How do these modal verbs translate across different languages and cultures? Do they carry the same weight and nuance? It's a fascinating thing to consider.
Ooh, yeah, we'll have to save that for another deep dive. But until then, we'll catch you on the next episode.